In this session, we will talk about Unified Modeling Language, UML, and we will discuss class and object diagrams. So in this lecture, in this session, we are not doing programming, just like the other sessions. Actually, we are doing designing, and the designing will be done using the UML. So we will start with defining classes in UML. It's defined as a class is a description of set of objects that share the same attributes, operations, relationships, and semantics. So usually when we say write a Java class, usually we have a class name, we have attributes, we have methods, and then we create objects of this class where they will have the same attributes, they will have the same methods. Instead of writing the Java as a program, we will do it as a class, as a diagram. So we can graphically have a class that is as a rectangle, and usually we will have the name, we will have attributes, and we will have operations and a separated parts. So the way we do it, we will have rectangle, and we have to divide it into 3 spaces. So the upper space, we will include the class name. So if the question is saying you have to design a class, the name of the class as university, then I have to write university in the first part. In the second or in the middle section of the rectangle, we will have all the attributes. So for example, for a university, we need name, we need address, we need telephone. So we will have all of these attributes in the middle section. In the last section of the rectangle, we will have operations, or which we refer to them as methods. So here we will have the set, the get, any printing method, any other special methods. So the first thing I have to remember out of this slide is classes in UML, we define them as rectangle. We will have 3 sections or 3 parts, where at the top we will have the class name. At the middle, we will have the list of attributes, and the last part, we will have the list of methods. And we will have class names for any UML class diagram that we have. So it's always the name of the class that is required in the graphical representation of the class, and always it appears at the topmost of the rectangle that we have. So always remember, start the topmost section of your UML class with the class name that you are designing. So let's assume we have the following. I have to design a class, and the name of the class is person. So if I need to draw a UML class diagram, I will have the rectangle. I should divide it into 3 parts. At the topmost one, I should have the class name, which is in our case, we are assuming this is called as person. Now in the middle section, I should have the list of attributes. I can have one or I can have many of them. So we know that attributes, usually they are properties of a class that describe the object, and in a class diagram, attributes will appear in the second part that is just below the name section. And how can we have attributes in our UML class? We will have the attribute name, colon, and then we have type. So here in the middle section, I will have attribute name, colon string, which means I have an attribute name of type string. I will have another attribute ID, colon long, which means I have an attribute ID, and this is of type long. So if you have, for example, another attribute that is, let's assume we have telephone. So simply what I will do, I will say I have telephone, and this is long, this is colon, and then I will have, for example, long as the data type. So whatever you have as attributes, always the way you define it, you should have attribute name, colon, and the data type. So again, remember, this is not Java programming, this is as designing a UML, and according to UML definition, we have to specify the attribute, colon, and then the type. Now, the second thing we have to remember that when we design our class, we will have public and private. So attributes, usually we have them as a private. In Java programming, we write the private keyword with our attributes, indicating that this attribute is a private. But in this case, where we have UML class diagram, we will have to use either a plus, which is for public, or minus, which is for private. So when you create your class and you mention that you will have person as the class name, so this is person as the class name, and then you say minus name, it means name is an attribute and this is minus, indicating that it's a private. Colon string, it means the data type is a string. And then if you say again minus id colon long, it means we have a private attribute named id of type long. So we can simply now take this UML class diagram and convert it into Java program by saying public class person, and then the attributes we will have private string name and a private long id. So now we can see why we use UML class diagram. If you have the requirements of your class, and then out of the requirements you draw the UML class diagram, then writing your Java program will be much easier, because you can easily translate the attributes you have, whether they are public or private, and you have all the data types, you have all the names, and you can write your class. Just like we have the class name at the top, we have the attributes at the middle section. Below that, at the last section at the below, we will have any list of methods we have. So for example, usually the main methods we have for a class, just like set and get method. So I have here set person to set the data, which are name and ID, get name to return the name of the person, get ID to return the ID of that person. So operations, which we refer to them as methods, it will describe the class behavior. So whatever we need to do as operations of that class, like set, get, print, calculate, whatever, and always they appear in the third part. So always they appear below or the last section of our UML class. So when you specify your operations, your methods, you specify the signature. So what do we mean by the signature? It means the name of the method, the type of the method, and what are the parameters we have to take. And if it is a method that returns a value, we have to specify the data type of the return. So here, for example, for a set person, I will have to open brackets and we will mention string comma long. What does it mean? It means this method is called setPerson. So this is the name of the method. It will take two parameters, string and long. And string because I will have to take string for name, and long because I have to take long for ID. And then colon void. Void, it means this method will return nothing. And we will start with the plus, which means this is a public method. The other method, the name is getName, brackets, empty brackets. We will take no parameters at all, but we have colon and then a string. It means because this is getName, so what I am expecting, I'm expecting to return name. And name is of type string, so I have to have the return as a string. And again, this is a plus, which means public. We have getID. Again, empty brackets, the return type is long because we are expecting ID, and ID has been defined as long. So the return type is long, and again, this is public. So with operations, you have to mention this is public by saying a plus, give it a name, and then between the brackets, if you have parameters, you should specify the data type. Do not say string new name, long new ID. We don't need the naming of the parameters. What we need is only the parameter data type. So because at the attributes I have two members, which is of type string and long. So here again I will have two members, which is of type string and long. If we do the same thing by adding telephone, just like what we did, by saying I will have minus telephone, and this is of type long. It means when it comes to the set, here I'll have again to mention comma, and I will say I should take a third member which is long. It's because I have to set a person, and to set the person I have to take the name, ID, and telephone. So I'll have to take string long and long again. And also we will have a third get method, which is, let's call it get telephone. And with this get telephone, we will take no parameter at all, but the return type in this case will be as long. So always remember to do a match. So for example, if here I mention that telephone as a string, because I am expecting that for telephone I might have, for example, +973 and then the numbers. And because I have a plus, so I will have to declare the data type as a string, which means now when we go to the methods, we have to do the matching. So remember, with the set, I cannot say long, I have to say string. And with the get, I should not say long, I should say string as well. So whatever attributes we have, also we have to make sure that we do a match with the operations. One important note that always we have to remember is that we should not include constructor within the UML class diagram. If you do recall, constructors are special methods. They are defined and they have the same name as the class name. The main job of constructors are to initialize the attributes whenever we create a new object. When it comes also one more thing is constructors, if we do not include them in our program, automatically we have default constructor created for us within Java classes. When it comes to UML class diagrams, they should not be included. So remember this, do not include constructor. Once you have your UML class, then you can specify objects. When you specify instances, when you specify the objects, then you can show that these attributes may have these values. So for example, if I'm having this class, which we just created earlier, person, I have name and ID, both of them are private along with their data type. We have the set get methods. If I need to show some examples, some instances or objects, then the way we have to do it, I'll have to do it as again rectangle of 2 sections. In the upper section, I will have to mention object name colon class name. Class name, this is the class we just defined, which is person. Object name is any object you define. Just like we say, we have a variable integer x. We have an object student y. So just give this name x, y, my student, my object. So any naming you prefer. And then at the other section, you will mention attribute name equal value. So here you have to go for each attribute and you mention equal and then give it a value. So you have to say, for example, name equal Ahmed, ID equal 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So this is the data we are expecting. So I have here 2 small examples. Here I'm saying employee colon person. What does it mean? It means I will have an object named employee, and this is of type person, and person, this is the class we created. Within this employee, I will have name and ID, because name and ID, they are the private members. I will say equal, double quotation Iman, equal 589651. So this is a long number. So I'm just having a sense of the data that I may expect when it comes to defining objects. I can have another object, student colon person. So again, this is an object of this class. I have the private member. For each private member, I have some data. So again, once you give examples, you give instances, you have to make sure that you are giving them of the same data type. So for example here, I'm expecting ID to be of type long. So when you give an example, do not say, for example, ID equal 35.6. This will not work out because I'm expecting long. I'm not expecting a double value. So we just have to remember the matching over there. One small thing also we have to remember is we should not show the methods when it comes to objects, because we know that all the objects we create of the same class, they will have the same methods. So there is no need to mention all the methods for each object. So let's do a recap again on the main thing we just talked about, UML class and UML instances, and then we will do a couple of exercises. So always when you start designing your class, remember that you have UML class diagram. If we go back, just let me remove these. We will have what we name as UML class diagrams. And in this UML class diagram, I will have a rectangle, and the rectangle I should have 3 sections. At the top section, I should specify the class name. So if the question was saying design a class for a student, then at the top I will have a student. Design a class named university, then university will be at the top. Then at the second section, at the middle one, I will have to go and specify the attributes. So name, ID, width, height, it depends on the class. And always we have to remember to start with, is it a private or is it a public? We know that in most cases we define data types we define attributes as private. So that's why I will have minus for all of the attributes I have. And then we have to specify the attribute and then colon and then the data type. So for example here, name colon string, which means I have an attribute name and it should be of type string. I have an attribute ID, it should be of type long. Remember, this is not a programming, so please remember not to do it as a Java program. Do not say private long ID and semicolon. This will work perfectly if it is for a question asking to write a Java class, but in our case we are discussing UML class diagrams, so we have to stick with the notations of UML. And then, just like we discussed, we will have methods, and methods usually they are public, so I will have public set, public get, another public get. So I will have pluses in front of each of them. For each operation, I have to specify the signature, and the signature, it means what is the naming of the method. So for example, here I have set person as the name. What are the parameters? I have to open brackets, and then I should have the parameters separated by comma. If I have 2 private attributes, I will have 2 parameters. If I have 8 attributes, I will have 8 parameters. And then colon void, because we know that set will return nothing. For example, for the get name, the name is get name. Open a bracket, close a bracket, and we have nothing in between because this is empty parameter. Colon string, it means we are expecting to return a string. And similarly with any other method. Also, we mentioned that, remember, do not include constructors when it comes to your UML class diagram. What we need to specify all the methods that we need, like printing, set, get, calculate, find, search, but constructor should not be there. Once you define your class diagram, then you can give what we name as objects or instances. So we can say UML object or UML instance. And the way we say, the way we define it, I should have it as a rectangle, and I should separate it into 2 sections. At the top section, I will have to mention the object name colon the class name. So if my class is person, that's why I'm having this is as person. And the object name, this is up to you. You can give it any name. In the second section, I have to specify the attributes and their values. So here I have ID and name. So simply I will say name and ID, or ID and name, it doesn't matter. And then equal some sample data, some sample values. I'll have to remember that I'm declaring name of type string, so I should have it as between double quotation, ID of type long, so I should have it as a long number. And also we have to remember that methods should not be shown within the UML objects because I need only sample of values of attributes, but the methods are shared between all the objects.